welcome back to TJM Angling. Today I'm on a rather wet day at Hunt Street, but this video is going to be a little bit different to the others because I thought it might be a good idea to give people a walk through what I've got in my tackle bag. I thought this might be useful to people who are new to starting fishing, as it will give them an idea what a more experienced angler might have in their tackle bag. I'm constantly adding into what I've got and removing stuff as and when I need it, but I thought I'd give you a quick walkthrough of the basics that I usually have in my bag. So let's go and grab it and start to have a little rummage through. Here's my bag then. It's only a cheap one by Chubb. I think I got it in a sale at my local fishing shop up in Chipping Sodbury, and that's where I get most of my fishing tackle, as it's nice and local to me. So the bag itself I think I paid about £3 for. One of the things that drew me to it is it's nice and small and compact, but it also has a carry handle, so if I wanted to go stalking it also gives me that option. So it's just a singular zip bag, and when you open it up it's got multiple dividers in it that I use for different bits and bobs. In this first little section then, I don't have anything in the left hand pocket at the moment, that's just empty, but in the right hand one I've got all my bits for rig tubing and leg clip packs. I find these quite good as it stops tangling on the cast if you use tubing, and some fisheries actually require that you use tubing as it helps protect the fish, so that's what I've got in this section. It's not 100% needed for your fishing, but it's a good thing to add if you want fish safety and if you're fishing places that it's required. I highly recommend the Corda ones as it comes with everything you need, but other companies such as Nash do similar kits. Here's the second section that I use then, and I predominantly use this for rig lines and stuff like that. So this big square one here is a stiff fluorocarbon for like stuff like IQD rigs if you watch any of the Corda DVDs. I've then got some rig putty and various coated and uncoated braids. Starting off with this one, this is just a soft uncoated braid. This one's in £18 as I like it nice and strong. This one's a semi-stiff coated, yet again nice and strong in a £20 format. This one's a semi-stiff coated one. We've then got this one, which is a soft coated braid, yet again in a £20 strength. And then we've got this one by Fox, which I like for using for hinge stiff rigs, as it's got the nice camouflage. Out of all of these, the one that I mainly suggest you probably want to buy is the semi-stiff coated braid. I use this in the majority of my fishing, and I find that it's the best for a lot of situations that I try and cover, so that's the one I'd personally recommend. Here's the next section in my tackle bag then. On this left hand side I use rig kickers such as the Fox Zigger liners and bits of shrink tube and kickers and stuff like that. I'd highly recommend these as soon as you get a bit more advanced, as they do aid the presentation of your rig, but as you start off, personally I wouldn't recommend them as they can be a little bit too fiddly and can overcomplicate stuff when you're starting out. On my right hand side, this is where I put all my hooks, etc. So starting off, I've got all sorts of hooks in here. So starting off, I've got the cranks. These are my personal favourite hooks, and if you get into carp fishing, these are the ones I'd recommend. They now do the choddy ones as well, so you can even tie pop-up rigs with them. The majority of stuff in my bag is related to carp fishing, but I've also got stuff for match fishing as well, such as hooks for smaller species such as roach and dace, etc. There we've got some chod rig hooks, some wide gapes, and then Palatrax grips hooks that act like a barbed hook even though they're barbless. These are pretty good. I got given these by Palatrax for a review, so you can watch that if you look on my channel. I've also got specialist hooks. These are great for small carp, chub, etc. Stuff that isn't quite as strong as a big carp, but you still want a bit of metal under the lip. More wide gapes, and then more match hooks, just in case I try and catch those smaller species. So, but out of all that, like I said, I recommend the crank hooks, as I found their hook holds to be really good, and they're nicely nailed in the bottom lip. But just get a selection of hooks, don't go too mad. I haven't got too many, but it keeps my options open when I'm fishing and allows me to catch most of the stuff that swims in the UK. Here's the last and final section that I use before I get into the main body of my bag then. On the left hand side I've got all my rig tools. The ones you predominantly need is probably the baiting needle and obviously a good pair of scissors. These are braid scissors by Guru. They stay nice and sharp for ages and I haven't had any problem with them. Another big plus is they're bright orange, so I haven't lost them yet, like some green scissors that I had in the past. Further down into this pouch, stuff that isn't really needed but is highly recommended as soon as you advance. Stuff like a rig puller for tightening down knots on rigs, lighters, braid stripping tools and stuff like that. But when you start off, just the basic scissors and baiting needle is probably all you need. Over on this right hand side we've got hair stops. I've got several different kinds. I've got these which are just the simple put on top of the bait and pull the hair down, and then these ones that actually sink into the bait itself. So when you've got stuff like crayfish, these are a lot better, as somehow the crays seem to be able to get these ones off and steal your bait. But with these they have to crush the bait or pull it really hard, and then you'll get indication on your alarm and you'll know that something's wrong. I've also got float stops in there for when I'm float fishing, or I do have it on my carp rods quite regularly to act as a buffer bead, but these are free running as the bore is quite big and are perfectly safe for the fish. So let's move on to the next part. Here's the main body of my bag then, and this is where I store all my big bulky items and stuff that won't fit in other places. So starting off, I've got the spawn. This is the mini spawn. I always carry this on me in case I need to deliver bait out at range. As it's the mini one, I can just tie it onto my line and cast it out with my normal fishing rods. I don't need a spod rod or anything special. I could just do it with my main fishing rods. If you're starting out, but if you're fishing at long range, I'd probably say you would want one of these. They are very simple to use. It's just load the bait in, and then once it hits the water, it hits the red button and it pops open. But I highly recommend these, and I always carry one with me. I've then got antibacterial hand gel for me, not for the fish unfortunately, but it just keeps me nice and clean and provides I don't get any diseases when I'm out on the bank. Then moving on, we've got stuff like floater line. This is a bit too big for in my lines bit, but it just hangs around in the bottom, and I regularly use this in the summer. As I say, this is the 12-pound one, and if you watch any of my previous videos on floater fishing, this is the line I use. I've also then got floating putty just in case. This helps if I'm free lining and I need to get the bait out a bit further, as it just adds that little bit of extra weight. I've also got stuff like bait floss for the pop-up rigs I use. This is super cheap, and like it says, you get 50 meters of it, so you get plenty to use. This has lasted me for a good couple of years and I've barely used any of it, so that's a good thing to have if you're starting to use pop-up rigs. Also, if you're going to use pop-up rigs, you can also use these, which are pop-up pegs. That means you can just screw your bait on, but they're not quite secure if you use bait floss in a bait stop. So it's something to think of. If you think the bait floss is a little bit too fiddly, then you can use bait pegs on your hook rather than a swivel. I've also then got hook beads for if I do use the bait pegs. These are handy as it stops it falling off the end. They're super discreet on the hook and the fish will barely notice they're there. We've then got my little angling times box. I use this for all my little artificial baits. So stuff like, we've got different corns here, a few pop-ups, little surface baits and some fake maggots. So this is all my artificial baits, and it just stays in the bottom of my bag in case I need it. I've then got stuff like zig links and my Fox zigger liners with the foam in them. I do have separate zigger liners in the aligner section, but this is just the kit it comes in, and I always keep it in the bottom. As for the zig links, they come in handy when zig fishing, as it just provides a little bit of movement for the zig rig that you wouldn't normally get if you didn't have these, so they are recommended. I have had some good effect on zigs, so I'll keep using them until I find something a bit better or something new comes out that I think will work for me. Moving on, we've got the zig links. I use these when I'm zig rig fishing, as they just provide a little bit of movement. These are good if you're getting into using zigs, as like I said, they provide movement you wouldn't normally get if you didn't use these. And then I've got the Fox Zig Aligner kit, just here. As I said, I've got spare aligners in my aligner section, but this is the kit it comes with. I've also got blocks of foam I can use, but I will keep using the little tubes they provide until they run out. And then I've got stuff like back leads. These are just spare ones. I do keep them constantly in my rod holder so I can just clip them on and they're ready for when I want them. I don't have to go rummaging in my bag, but these are just spare ones in case I crack off. So they are a little bit expensive for what they are, but I think they're personally very good, as it keeps the line tight but along the bottom. So if you look it up, they'll explain it on a nice diagram, but very simple. I think I get more bites using them, so I highly recommend them. Then we've got stuff like forceps, great for unhooking all sorts of fish. I use these on the smallest roach to the biggest carp and pike that I catch, so I highly recommend having a set of these in your bag if you're starting off, as it'll just make your life easier. Personally, I don't carry a disgorger. I prefer to use these, it's just personally what I prefer, but either will do the job. And then we've got stuff like split camo shots. I use the camouflage ones as it suits the colour of the bottoms that I fish on. I've got 2 lots as I've just ran out of some of these, so I've topped up with a new batch. But I always carry split shots with me, whether I'm float fishing or carp fishing, as they always come in handy. Other bits that I have then that won't fit in anywhere else: tail rubbers, leg clips and different size swivels. These are recommended if you're getting into tying up your own carp rigs for the swivels, and the leg clips are 100% required for carp fishing, as you need something nice and strong to support that heavy lead in case you're going out at long range. So all of that I highly recommend. I personally wouldn't recommend the quick change swivels until you're advanced, but the size 8 ring swivels are more than adequate for the job. I've then got stuff like method feeders and spare leads. I do keep leads constantly in my rod holder, but these are just here in case I lose them. And for the method feeder, it just aids me in case I want to use some ground bait for stuff like tension bream and stuff like that. Here are the final bits in my bag then. We've got a little bit of liquid additive. This is bug juice by Nash and in the nectar flavour. I use this when I'm zig fishing, as I think it just provides a little bit of extra attraction. And then I've got a little roll of tape for bodged repairs on the go. I've used a bit of this on my umbrella at some point where it's been caught in the thorns, so I've just had to patch up a quick hole on an overnighter. And now I've just got a little spare pouch. Here I've got a couple of swivels in here, but this is just for little rig bits that I can just chuck in and sort out as and when I need them. So that's my rig bag. I've also got a few other bits that I don't keep in my bag, but I'll go and get those now. Here are those bits I was on about then. Generally, most people will keep these in their tackle bag, but these are just a little bit too big for when I've got all the rest of my stuff in there. So starting off, we've got my favourite thing when I'm carp fishing is my spice mix. This is 80% chili, and then the 20% is other stuff such as mustard, salt and stuff like that. I found this to be really effective, and I use it in most of my fishing, even when I'm fishing for other species, but I always use it when I fish for carp. And then we've got mesh PVA. This is the Corda one, but companies like Nash and Avid and stuff like that also do them. I prefer the Corda one, but that's just personal preference. I use this all the time, little bags of pellets and stuff like that, just gives a little bit more attraction around your hook bait. And then, final thing, I've got a Corda crusher. I use this for crushing up boilies and stuff to add to the little PVA mesh sticks that I send out. Just adds the attraction, it just aids crushing up stuff. They are quite strong, I can crush tiger nuts and stuff like that in here, so they are good for more solid objects as well. Well then, that's all the stuff I've got in my bag. I hope you found it useful. It might not be the tidiest tackle bag in the world, but I thought I'd give you a little look through to see what it is that I use. Hopefully you found some things that you could use in your own fishing and giving you an insight in how I like to fish and what I use. So remember to like, comment and subscribe, and in the meantime, enjoy your fishing.